Hello and welcome to my new story, Here the Unheard. Many years ago, a king sent his prince to study under a great master who had been told to teach the prince the basics of being a good ruler. And when the prince arrived at the temple of the master sent him alone to the forest and asked him to hear the sound of the forest. Prince spent almost a year in the forest and then returned. And when the prince returned, the master asked him to describe all that he could hear in the forest. Master, replied the prince, I could hear the cuckoos sing, the leaves rustle, the hummingbird hum, the crickets chirp, the grass blow, the bees buzz, and the wind whisper. When the prince had finished, the master told him that it is not enough. It is not sufficient. He asked the prince to go back to the forest to listen to what more he could hear. The prince was puzzled by the master's request. Had he not heard every sound already? However, if the master wants me to listen some more things, let me try again. The prince again returned to the forest. For days and nights on end, the young prince sat alone in the forest listening to the sound of the forest. But he heard no sound other than those he had already heard. But one fine morning, as the prince sat beneath the trees, he started to hear faint sounds which he had never heard before. The more carefully he listened, the clearer the sounds became. The feeling of enlightenment enveloped the prince. These must be the sounds the master wished me to hear, he reflected. When the prince returned to the temple, the master asked him what more he had heard. Master, responded the prince reverently, when I listened more carefully, I could hear the unheard, the sound of flowers blooming. I heard the sound of the sun warming the earth and the sound of grass drinking the morning dew. The master nodded with smile. To hear the unheard, pronounced the master, is the requisite qualification to be a good ruler. Because only when a ruler has learned to listen to the feelings that are uncommunicated, pains which are unexpressed, and the complaints that are not spoken of, he can hope to inspire confidence in his people, understand what is wrong, and meet the true needs of his citizens. Like the prince in this story, it is true for us as leaders to hear the sound of the people around us, to hear the feeling of our own team members and colleagues. An organization we work would progress, prosper, and flourish when leaders listen to the unspoken words and penetrate deeply into the souls of people to hear their true opinions, feelings, and desires. Let us emulate the moral illustrated by this small story and let us hear the unheard. Thank you for listening patiently.